Hi, Aletha West. This is Mrs. Myers, and I will be going over the answers to the ACT practice passage you did today on Kahoot. So the first thing that I noticed that's a little bit different about this passage compared to some of the other ACT science passages is that most of the questions ask about several parts of the passage. So usually we recommend don't read the passage at all, go straight to the questions. It takes too much time to read the passage. But here I'm noticing most of these questions ask about study one and study two, or all three studies. So for questions like that, where you're looking at lots of different parts of the passage, it might be good to kind of read the passage a little bit, at least skim it and kind of sum it up in your brain before you start. Okay, so again, don't read it word for word, that takes way too long, but let's just kind of say, okay, what is this passage about? Okay, so typically there's one little sentence or short paragraph at the beginning that gives you a summary. Let's read this. A consumer safety laboratory conducted 3 studies of vehicle braking performance under various conditions. Okay, that tells me this passage is about testing, do the brakes on cars work? Cool, sounds interesting. Typically, these passages on ACT Science have very little to do with anything that you've done in class. They're just, can you read a graph? Can you read informational text? Okay, probably haven't learned a lot about car brakes in any of your classes. That's okay. All right, and then I see that we have 3 studies. We have study 1, study 2, and study 3. And I'm going to quickly scan them to see, okay, what's the difference between these 3 studies? So when there's more than one thing, it's good to figure out, okay, what's the difference between each of these? Okay, switching to a highlighter. Study 1, okay, we've got 3 identical vehicles and we're testing 3 different braking systems. We've got system X, system Y, and system Z. Okay, and it looks like they're testing them on dry and wet roads for each system, and they're finding out S and B. I don't know what S and B are yet. I'll figure it out if I need to for a question, but I'm not going to take the time to read this whole section. So study 1, something about testing 3 brake systems. Cool. Okay, study 2, they're adding 300 kilograms of cargo in each of the vehicles. So basically they're making the cars heavier and then testing them again. And in this table 2 looks very similar to table 1. All right, we're testing 3 systems on a dry road and a wet road and measuring S and B. Cool. So I tell myself, okay, you might want to jot a little note to yourself in the margins on the test. The only difference here in study 2 is that we're adding cargo, making it heavier. And then we've got study 3. Okay, study 3, we're looking at different types of cars: compact car, a sedan, a minivan, and a truck. Okay, cool. And it looks like this is very different data. The only thing they were looking at in study 3 was average S for each of these different types of cars. Cool. Don't know what S is. I'll figure it out if I need to. All right, so now I feel pretty comfortable with the passage. Something about testing car brakes. For the second one, they added some cargo, and for the third one, they tested different types of cars. Cool, sounds good. Let's see if we can answer these questions now. All right, 14 is our first question. Which of the following statements about the design of the 3 studies is consistent with their description? So basically, what's true about all these studies? And this is asking about all 3 studies, so that tells me I'm looking at all 3. I did that short little summary, so this question should be easy. All right, let's go through these and see which one is true, which one is consistent. F, study 1 was the only study in which more than 3 vehicles were involved. That's not true because I've got data for at least 4 vehicles for study 3, so it can't be F. G, study 2 was the only study in which cargo was involved. Ah, yes, that is true. Only one that talks about cargo is study 2. So if I have time, I'll go through all the other answers, but ACT Science is quick. G sounds right. I'm going to keep going. All right. 15. Any braking system that resulted in an average S that was greater than 50 meters was designated as unsafe. Okay, so I'm going to highlight that or underline that on my test. More than 50 is unsafe. Based on the results of studies 1 and 2, so I'm looking at 1 and 2, okay, which systems were unsafe under at least one of these conditions? So basically it's asking me, okay, is X safe? Is Y safe? Is Z safe for, or is X, Y, and Z unsafe at least once in either one of these tables, in study 1 or in study 2? And I know that unsafe means more than 50 meters for S. Okay, let's look at study 1 first. All right, study 1, we're looking at S. Were any of these greater than 50 meters? X is not greater than 50, they're 43 and 45. Y, yes, it's greater, so Y, yes. Z, it was for wet. So Y and Z, not X. Okay, let's look at study 2. S, greater than 50, not for X, same thing. Yes for Y, 60 and 63, those are greater than 50. Z, yes for wet. Okay, so my answer for this one should be Y and Z, but not X. So C for number 15. Those two had higher than 50 at least once. All right, number 16. 16 is asking about study 3. So I know I focused here. I'm going to change my color just because we're in a different question. All right, study 3. Study 3, so I know I'm focusing on this section of the passage, ignoring the rest. Okay, and this gives me masses of the vehicles, how much mass each type has. Cool. Okay, for a given road type, as vehicle mass increased, average S what? So this is a pretty common ACT science format. Basically, mass goes up, does this other variable go up, go down, or not show a relationship? Okay, it looks like from compact to sedan, it increases. Sedan to minivan, it increases. Minivan to truck, it decreases. So increase, increase, decrease. Is that true for average S in this graph? Increase, increase, decrease. I see increase, I see increase, I see decrease. So they follow the same relationship. As mass increases, S also increases. So our answer is 16 should be F. They are following the same pattern. When one goes up, the other one also goes up. When one goes down, the other one also goes down. All right, 17. Let's choose a different color. Red. Okay. 17. Consider the set of 10 trials in study 2. So I'm focusing on study 2, just this section here, nothing else, okay, in which the vehicle equipped with system Y was tested on dry. So I'm looking at Y dry, okay, so this section here, okay, see how you can narrow down which part of the passage is important for each question, okay, which of the following statements about the 10 stopping distances was most likely correct? Okay, which of these is true? And they're asking about Y dry stopping distance. Stopping distance is, which one is stopping distance, S or B? I'm gonna have to look back in this paragraph. B looks like deceleration, stopping distance, S. So I'm focused on this number here, 60.7, okay. And this tells me it's average, okay. So were all distances less than 60, equal to 60, greater than 60, or some were less, some were greater? I know what an averages means. Average means you take them all together and then you divide by the number. For averages, some are higher, some are lower. The average is kind of in the middle. So D is the best answer for 17. They took 10 different tests. The average was 60.7. So some will be higher than 60, some will be lower than 60. 17 is D. All right, 18. Let's keep using red, I guess. 18. In study 3, a fifth vehicle was tested. Its average B was 7.7. Okay, 7.7. I don't see anything about B in this graph, so that tells me I'm gonna have to look somewhere else in this. Based on the results of study 1, it tells me where to look. We're also gonna be checking out study 1 for this. Okay, the average S for this on most likely on the dry road. Okay, so we're looking about something about dry. Okay, something about B was 7.7. Oh, I see. B 7.7 for dry for system Y. So maybe this is going to be important. Okay, would have been closest to the average S in study 3 for what vehicle type? Okay, so this is just asking me, okay, take this number, find it in study 3. Okay, and which vehicle type matches this closest? Okay, I see 7.7 here. Okay, so for 7.7, if I'm finding the data that corresponds with that, it's 57.5 for S. Because there's nothing about B in this graph, I'm looking for S. Here's S, okay, so 57.5. If I look, okay, around 57.5, which one was around there? Minivan was the one that was around 57.5. So minivan sounds like it's the closest match to the data they're describing. So the answer for 18 should be H. So this was a tricky question. It's asking you to put lots of different information together. We don't have time on Science ACT to fully understand everything they're asking. Just try to find, okay, where does this match up? Where does this match up? Which answer falls in line with the data they're describing? They told me to look at study 3, study 1. They told me B was 7.7. This was the only B that I found for 7.7. There's nothing about B here, so I knew I had to find something about S. Here the S was 57. At 57S, it looked like minivan. All right, that's the answer. So kind of a long string of events just to find what data matches what they're describing. All right, let's switch to a new color for our next question. How about green? Okay, number 19. According to the results of studies 1 and 2, all right, so we're looking at 1 and 2, narrow it down, compared with the trials performed on the dry road, comparing with dry road, on the wet road was what? Okay, so they're basically asking, okay, compare wet and dry in 1 and 2. Okay, we've got wet, dry, wet, dry, wet, dry, wet, dry, wet, dry, wet, dry. Compare them. Okay, first let's look at stopping distance. Okay, with stopping distance more or less for dry roads. Okay, here it looks like stopping was less. Here stopping was less. Here stopping was less. See how 45 is less than 52. And then same thing in this study. Stopping was less, stopping was less, stopping was less. 46 is less than 58. So it looks like stopping should always be less. So it's either C or D. And if you were running out of time, just pick one and keep going. If you get a 50-50 shot, you don't lose points if you get the wrong answer. All right, now let's look at deceleration, B. Okay, is B less or more when you compare wet and dry? Here for dry, it is more, 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 because 9.6 is more than 9, more, more. Okay, so now we're looking for greater deceleration. So 19 should be B, except that's not what I have. So let's check. Oh, I have it switched. They're asking dry compared to wet. So it should actually be 19 should be B. Okay, more, 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 and then less, less, less. Cool. All right, and then 20, last one. Let's go back to blue. Okay. 20, in a new set of 10 trials performed on dry, the vehicle with system Z was accelerated to 60 meters per second. So it's going a lot faster. Okay, it's going a lot faster. So because they tell us here it was going 30, so it's going twice as fast. Okay, and they're asking the average B for this set was 10. Okay, the average S was going to be more or less than 45. Okay, this looks a little bit tricky. Sounds like I need to actually know what B and S mean. Okay, notice I haven't known what B and S really mean this whole time. I've just been going through and trying to match parts of the passage with the answers. Okay, so let's figure out what B and S actually mean. If I were taking the test and I was time crunched right now, I'd probably just pick an answer and keep going. But I have time. I'm doing a video. Let's explain what B and S are. Okay. B. B stands for braking deceleration. Okay. Accelerate, I know, means how fast you're speeding up. So decelerate means how fast you're slowing down. Okay. So B is how fast we're slowing down. I might write in a little note to myself. That's what that means. And S, what does S mean? S means here, stopping distance. So how far does the car go before it stops? Okay. Now, using common sense, if I am going twice as fast now, and my B, the rate at which I slow down, is staying the same. They're doing system Z. B is 10, and it's staying the same because it was 10 before. Okay. And they told us which section to look at there. If my my rate that I'm going slower is staying the same, but I was going twice as fast, do you think the distance that it would take me to slow down would be more or less? If I'm going faster and I'm slowing down the same amount, then I'm probably going to take longer to brake, right? So average S should be longer. So it's either going to be H or J. Okay, let's see what their explanations are. H says greater, it takes longer to slow down or takes a longer distance to slow down because a vehicle slowing down at the same rate from a lower speed requires more distance to come. That doesn't really make sense. J, greater, a vehicle slowing down at the same rate from a higher speed. Yeah, because we are at a higher speed. We're at 60 now instead of 30. Requires more distance to stop. That makes sense. So answer should be J. That one required a little bit of common sense. Why would it take longer to slow down if you're going at twice as fast? We know that. Most of you are probably drivers by the time you take the ACT. Takes longer to brake when you're going faster. All right, those are our answers for the Science ACT passage this week. Hope you learned something and got some good practice. Thanks for watching.